Hello YouTube. Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am doing Drunk Classics on The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. I am so excited to read this. So I did Interview with the Vampire, and all of you guys kept telling me, like, no, don't believe Louis. Louis lies. You gotta read Lestat's version of events. And I was like, okay, let's go. And you know what? I'm very excited to do this. I want to see what's going on. Like, everyone told me so many things. Now, like, the mystery has been built up. And I'm very excited for this one. I got this really cool old edition of it. I got it, like, at a library book sale, so I think it's close. It's not a first edition, but it's, like, close to. And I'm very excited to read this so much. It's gonna be so good! Okay, anyway. I'm just gonna get going here. I have the glass of white wine. Amanda, this is a vampire book. Shouldn't you be drinking red? Yes, I should. But you know what? I had white wine in the fridge already, so I'm going to finish that first. And then I will move to red later on. Hi. Okay. I read the first third of this book. First of all, right? I thought this was going to be Lestat's version of Interview with the Vampire, so I thought it was gonna be all of that again, but from a different perspective, but like it's not. They just dropped the bombshell in the very beginning of the book. He's like, by the way, it's 1984, I'm a rock star. What's up? Like, they just dropped that in. No explanation as to how this happened. And then Lestat, he gets a copy of Interview with the Vampire and he reads it and he's like, Louis, you have some creative imagination about what actually happened in the past, but I'm gonna let this one slide. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write my own memoirs. So he does that, and that's kind of what this book is. It's like his memoirs. So the first thing I noticed about the book, besides his backstory stuff, is that immediately this Lestat is so different than the Lestat we got in Interview with the Vampire. Like, that Lestat, full buffoon. Just buffoonery all the time. This Lestat is, like, thoughtful and poetic and intelligent. So let's talk about the story of Lestat. Lestat, right? It's, like, long time ago. And they're, like pre-French Revolution. So, like, mid-1700s, I'll say. And Lestat, he is, impoverished nobility. His dad's a marquess. He has like 7 brothers. He's the youngest. He's like the 7th son. Like, there's nothing to inherit by then anyway, pretty much. But like, also they're all dirt poor. And Lestat is kind of like, I don't know, taking care of everybody, kind of. Like, he learns to hunt early on because otherwise the family's gonna starve. They got no money for anything. They're impoverished nobility. And, like, the dad's a real piece of shit. He's basically fine with everyone being dirty, like, illiterate idiots. Like, he's fine with it. He's like, whatever, you don't need to read. You're rich. And he's like, we're not rich. We have no money. I should learn to read. And the dad's like, fuck reading. It's a whole thing. So Lestat is already, like, the odd person out because, like, he's taking care of everything / wants to be educated. He's really artsy. He's sensitive in a family of non-sensitive people. But he gets along really well with, like, his mom. Like, he and his mom, they're, like, good friends. They kind of understand each other. And then one day he goes out hunting and things are going badly. Like, he's like, this doesn't feel right. And it's not. Why? He gets attacked by a pack of wolves. Like, a whole pack of them. And he has to fight off these wolves. Like, full on Liam Neeson in The Grey. Like, I'm fighting a pack of wolves with my bare hands. Like, that's it. He's a big hero now. Like, he killed a pack of wolves. And everyone's like, sup, Lestat? You get a free drink. Like, everyone likes Lestat in town. It doesn't ingratiate him towards his family because they're all assholes. And they're like, oh, you think you're better than us now because you killed wolves? And he's like, well, kind of, yeah, because I killed the wolves. So it's a bad situation for Lestat. He's not happy here. All he wants to do is escape this fucking family. He doesn't like them. He likes his mom. But, like, he wants nothing to do with his family. They suck. Lestat, he meets this guy named Nicholas, or he calls him Nicky. So we call him Nicky, right? And they are full emo kids together. They're like, oh, no one understands my art. I'm sad. I have all these emotions that are most deep things that no one's ever felt before. They wax a lot of poetic about things and get very drunk, and they're boyfriends. And I was like, and Nicky's a violinist. He wants to learn violin, but he has a similar dad who's like, don't learn music, that's stupid, blah. And Lestat, he wants to be an actor. And it just keeps getting worse at home. Like, the brothers and the father are just worse and worse to him. And the mom finally is like, hey, Lestat, I'm dying. I'm sorry, that's not funny. I'm just, anyway, she's dying of like consumption. And she's like, listen, this is the only thing I could do for you. I don't want you to see me like this. I want you to go and like live your life, run away with Nicky, go to Paris, be an artist. Like, here's the last amount of money I have. I've been saving it. It's yours. Get the fuck out of here. So they run off. They do it in the middle of the night. They run off together. They go to Paris, right? And they're like, we're gonna be artists, yay! And they're fully living their starving artist bohemian fantasy. Like, Nicky, he plays violin, and Lestat, he's kind of like has to work his way up in this acting troupe. They hire him as like the cleaner guy, and then like he's handsome, so eventually he gets to like act in the play just because he's pretty. But then he like does a good job, and everyone's like, okay, you can keep acting, come back. And like, it's like a little cute theater kid family. Like, they're all like supportive of each other. It's like a little found family they have in Paris. Like, they're poor as shit, but they're happy, essentially. Lestat, he's acting in all these plays, and every night he sees, like, this creepy guy in the audience. But, like, no one else seems to notice the creepy guy, so he's just like, am I hallucinating? I don't know what's happening. But this goes on for, like, a while. And then one night, the creepy audience guy kidnaps Lestat. Like, out of his bedroom, he's in bed with Nicky in their bedroom, kidnaps him out of the bed. Nicky doesn't wake up somehow. Maybe there was some vampire witchery. I don't know. But he kidnaps Lestat, runs off with him. And Lestat is obviously freaked out by this because this creepy old guy broke into his house and kidnapped him through a window, and he lives like on the 5th floor, and he's like, how did this happen? We're not falling to our deaths, and you're drinking my blood now. Oh, great. And he passes out. And he wakes up a while later. He's like in this tower, and then the creepy guy's there, and he's like, oh shit, and is like the oldest guy he's ever seen. Like it's like stereotypical, like maybe offensive, like depiction of an old person, where like he's so old of a vampire, like he doesn't have any teeth. All he's got is fangs. All his teeth are gone. He's just anyway, his name is Magnus, and he's old as shit, and he's like, Lestat, you're handsome. You got blonde hair like the sun, and your eyes are blue like the sky, and I miss that. I like you. And Magnus is like, guess what? I'm making you a vampire. So Lestat's a vampire now, and Magnus is like, okay, here's some things. 1, see that thing over there? That's where I keep my treasure. 2, like when you're drinking people, don't drink them all the way to death because you'll make you die. And then don't go out in the sun. All right, bye. And then he jumps in a fire and sets himself on fire and dies. Like Lestat just became a vampire like 10 minutes ago. and his maker has leaped into the fire and died. That was it. That was his whole training he got. So Lestat is just, well, shit, what do I do now? And you know what? I am not even joking right now. I'm just gonna tell you what happens. He literally shits his pants. I am not making that up. Lestat is standing there, and he's just like, oh, his body is dying, and he literally shits his pants. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, I've seen people turn into vampires, like, in, like, the vampire movies from Anne Rice, and it's always just like, ooh, ow, I'm a vampire. It's really simple, and this one, it was just, he literally shit his pants. So after he's done shitting his pants, he gets his shit together, and he's like, all right, well, I gotta figure this shit out because, like, no one's gonna tell me what to do. First things first, he has his priorities, right? So he goes into the treasure place. He finds this pretty, like, stone sarcophagus, and he's like, nap time, okay. Luckily, I think Magnus knew he was gonna shit his pants because he left like a fresh change of clothes in there, and they're like fancy clothes, and he's just like, nice. So gets cleaned up, puts on new clothes. Thank you, Magnus, for looking out. And you know, it's been a hell of a night. So Lestat, he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna start fresh tomorrow. So he gets in the little sarcophagus and he goes to sleep. And he wakes up the next evening, and he hears like this human walking around the tower, and he's like, why is there a human here? And he's like, oh, it's like a servant. It's time for breakfast. So like he gets up, he comes out of the coffin, and then the servant guy's like, hey, where's Magnus? He's like, Magnus? Oh, let me tell you what happened to Magnus. He burned himself in the fireplace. By the way, your breakfast. And he like, blah, 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 blah. He eats them. And like, you know, he's not really concerned about the morality of this yet. Mind you, he just got turned to a vampire and he was hungry. So like, wrong place, wrong time for this servant guy. So he's had his breakfast. He's feeling a lot better. He still has to figure out what this whole vampire thing's about. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go out of town. I'm gonna go over there and like test some shit out. Let's see what I could do. Like he's kind of smart. He's using some type of like scientific method to like figure out what his abilities are. He learns like a lot about his strength and like agility and stuff, but he also learns, which I did not know was going to be in this book, that he can read minds. Like he has telepathy. He comes back to Paris, right? And he's like, you know what I need? I need a lawyer. Step one, get a lawyer. I'm about to kill a lot of people. I'm going to need legal counsel. So he gets a lawyer, right? And he's like, hey, guess what? You're my lawyer now. You're going to get a lot of money for this. Here you go. And the lawyer's like, oh, I'm getting this much money. I'll do whatever you want. Like, no questions asked. And so he's like, okay, here's all this wealth. Here's all this money. Like, he grabs a bunch of the treasure, right? He brings it to this lawyer and he's like, okay, I want you to like give it to this person, this person, this person, this person. So like, he like gives a bunch of his like wealth to like all of his like friends at like the theater, and he sends some home to his mom and his like family and like all his nieces and nephews. He sets up like basically trusts for everybody. And he sends a bunch of money to Nikki as well, because he's also like, oh shit, I can't be around Nikki. Like, he's gonna notice I'm a vampire. And also, he probably wants to eat Nikki. So he's like, I can't be around Nikki at all, but I'm gonna give him a bunch of money. For some reason, he thinks that'll solve the problem of like literally ghosting your boyfriend. So now that like all of like his friends and his family are like set up financially, he's like, all right, time for Lestat to have a good time. So he just like goes kind of like, he just goes on a rampage around Paris. He's just like doing crazy shit. He's wilding out all over Paris and like eating people, not really thinking about things yet. It's all new to him, so he's still trying to like find out where the line is, like what's too much. I don't know. So time goes on. He's been wilded out. He starts getting lonely. So one day he goes back to the little theater where he worked and all his friends are. And he's like, I should not go to this theater because everyone's going to tell like I am not human. It's kind of obvious, but he goes anyway. So everyone's really excited to see him, and they're like, oh, fuck, Lestat, we got all your money. Like, dude, what did you do? Like, there's a lot of money now. Like, and they're all excited to see him because they were all his friends, and they're all like, yay, Lestat. And he sees Nikki, and that doesn't go well because he's like, oh, fuck, Nikki. And he's like, I'm in love with Nikki, but like at the same time, I'm going to eat Nikki. Like, so he's having some conflicting thoughts. And you know what? Instead of like, you know, talking about how he feels or telling someone what's up, he just like, I'm about to go crazy up in this theater. So he gets on stage, he starts doing crazy vampire shit, like jumping 30 feet in the air, doing all these weird like vampire-y movement shit. And like for some reason vampire voices, maybe they have this super strong vocal cords, but like if you don't like modulate how loud you're talking, like you can talk so loud you'll burst eardrums. And he's just like, blah, bursting eardrums. Like he's just going crazy on the stage, like expecting no problems, and everyone's freaked the fuck out. Like all of the patrons are running, no one's having this. This guy shoots him, and I'm like, rightfully so. He's obviously like, what is this demonry? So he gets shot. He's fine. He heals like right away. The guy, he's like, oh no, faint. Like, which like frankly, what else are you gonna do at that point? and so it doesn't go well, and he's just like, blah, 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 I'm sad, and he runs away. Lestat just runs away from the theater after he fucked their shit up right away. Like, oh my goodness, Lestat, like, bro. So Lestat's like, okay, this was a bad idea, I'm not doing that again. So he goes to lawyer guy, and he's like, lawyer guy, take all of this money now, and I want you to give it to like the owner of the theater troupe. Tell him, hey, get all your people, you're moving to London, get the fuck out of Paris. Like, he pays them so much money to get them away from him rather than Lestat just leaving. I don't know, but anyways, he pays all these like theater troupe to like move to London or something. Get out of Paris, I can't be around you. Obviously it's a bad idea. And of course, like, Nicky's not gonna accept this. He's like, my boyfriend like ghosted me and then showed up with like demon powers. What is happening? Nicky's not doing well mentally, and like Lestat needs him away. He's like, lawyer guy, hey, I need you to go to Nicky, right? And I want you to give him all this money and tell him that I told you to tell him that I want him to go to my estate and like get my mom who's dying and take her to Naples, which is where she's from, so she could be in the warm air and maybe it'll like help her lungs. So like he gets lawyer guy to do that, and Nicky does it. He goes and gets the mom. Her sickness has progressed a lot more than anticipated. So she gets to Paris and she's not gonna make it any further. Like she is full dying. And the lawyer tells Lestat this, and Lestat is obviously distraught. So Lestat, he's like, all right, I'm gonna rally. I'm gonna go see my mom and pull my shit together. So he goes to see his mom, right? So Lestat, he puts some of his vampire like abilities to work, and he like mind melds with his mom, and he like shows her what happened to him. He's like, listen, like blah 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 blah. He's like, the Magnus thing, the vampire thing, the wild and out thing, the blood thing, like all of it. He shows her it like through mind melding, and he's like, listen, do you want me to do this to you? Like, I'll do it if you ask me to. And she's like, yeah, I'm really scared. So he's like, okay, and he makes his mom into a vampire. And so like now he and his mom are vampires. It's like, hey, mother son vampire duo, like it's kind of fun. And he starts calling her Gabrielle because she's not really his mom anymore. She's a new thing. She's a vampire. That's fine. I'm fine with that. The part that like is getting weird, and I'm glad I'm stopping for today and taking a break for like a minute, because like they kiss more than a mom and son should. Like, I could see like a little bit, like, you're sad, I'll give you a kiss, la la la, it's not a big deal, but like they're like tongue kissing, and I'm like, like I feel very uncomfortable right now. Like, this is questionable at best. So anyway, on that note, I'm done reading for today. I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'll get through like the middles of the book, and then we'll see what happens next. But right now, Lestat, he's a vampire. He made his mom into a vampire. They're wilding out around Paris probably. So that's all I've gotten so far. Hi YouTube. It's day 2 officially of The Vampire Lestat, and I'm having a good time with it. I mean, I did read all of part 1 yesterday. I'm moving on to part 2 today. I'm so excited. I'm really liking the book so far, but like I don't know, it's very also sad, I guess, and existential. Like, there's probably a better word to use for that, maybe morose, I guess. So it does take a lot out of me, like, reading the book. It's like a marathon. So anyway, let's go. I'm gonna read the middle part of this book, and I'll check in when I'm done. Hi. I have completed the second third, the 2/3 of this book. I'm done with them, and a lot has happened. Okay, so Lestat and his mom are vampires, right? And they're going around Paris doing vampire shit. And like Lestat keeps feeling like this presence, and it's following him around town. And he's like, what is this presence? And it keeps happening for a while until like they finally get real bold with it, and like they finally like he sees the presence and they're other vampires, but these ones are like fucked up vampires. He's like, y'all look like you should be in the graveyard. Like, are you fresh out your tomb? Like, what's happening? They're real decrepit. And he's like, whoa, no. And they like chase him and Gabrielle, and they have to escape them. Now there's a big vampire chase through Paris, and they get, and Lestat and Gabrielle, they get back to their little tower, and they hide in there because the other vampires can't get into it. So they're like, you blasphemers. And then they run off and they kill his stable boy, which is a dick move. Stable boy didn't do nothing to anybody. He killed the stable boy. And they call him a blasphemer, and he's just like, okay, pun kittle, like, y'all are vampires too, whatever. And then they realize, oh shit, the stable boy, he was wearing this coat that was Nikki's coat. So he's like, oh shit, these little fucking decrepit vampires, like, kidnapped Nikki. I gotta go get Nikki. So Lestat and Gabrielle, they're gonna go rescue him. So they like track down the creepy vampires, and like things get real weird real quick. Like it starts being full on Children of the Corn. Like I was not expecting Children of the Corn, but like it becomes Children of the Corn. So they find them. They have this little like sepulcher. Look at me using big words. And they're like really religious. They're like, we follow the teachings of Satan and we do evil things in his name. And they all live in this like shitty place with like rot all around them, and they're calling Lestat a blasphemer because he goes into churches. Like vampires can go into churches. He's like, yeah, like just go in the church. It doesn't matter. I ate someone in the church like last week. Like, so, I mean, blasphemer for multiple reasons why he's a blasphemer, but they don't like him for that because he's pretending like he's not a creepy vampire. They think all vampires should be like creepy little like hermits like them. And then they meets the leader, and he's like this young looking vampire guy. But guess what? Do you want to know who the leader ended up being? It was Armand. Oh my gosh, if you've read Interview with the Vampire, Armand is a vampire in that. And like Armand's in this, he shows back up, and he is leader of the Children of the Corn. Like he is living his full like cult leader fantasy. And he's basically having all of these like vampires in his coven like live in the old ways. So they have to be like creepy, decrepit little things who hang out in graveyards, and they act like evil because they're agents of Satan. And like Lestat is like, bro, like you don't have to do this. Like no one's making you do this. So Lestat is like saying all this stuff and completely just contradicting Armand in front of his whole little coven. And all the coven's like, you know, you make some good points, Lestat. Like, like immediately they're like, huh, now that you mention it. So Armand is like, you know, upset because he's like, you're fucking up my stuff, yo. No, we need to go be evil. This is what vampires do. And Lestat's like, you know, you don't have to. And like, it's this whole thing. So he kind of makes a divide in the Children of the Vampire Corn. Armand is very upset because like his whole coven fucking decided to go be party animals. And he's like, well, shit. So, like Lestat, he ends up rescuing Nikki. I mean, Nikki is obviously traumatized. He was kidnapped by vampires. He was already not good mentally. And like this on top of it. And Nikki, he's like begging Lestat. He's like, Lestat, you have to turn me into a vampire. Like, how dare you? How dare you ghost me because you became a vampire and then not share it with me? Like, what is wrong with you? It's this whole thing. He lays out this whole guilt trip. And Lestat, he does it. He turns Nikki into a vampire. He's unhappy about it. And Nikki, he's not doing well mentally, like I said. And like becoming a vampire on top of all that mental trauma does not help the situation. In fact, you know what? It makes it worse. He's not getting better. So he's just kind of catatonic all the time. And so like Lestat's like, okay, I gotta snap you out of it. Snap out of it, Nikki. So he goes over to like Nikki's apartment, and he's gonna go get his violin. He's like, Nikki likes violin. Maybe he'll play violin and it'll like make him happy. I don't know. So he goes over to Nikki's house. He's gonna get the violin, and you know what? He gets there and the house is trashed, and he's like, what happened? And like he hears someone still in the house. He's like, oh shit. And you know who's in the house? Armand. He's in Nikki's house reading all of his books and going through all of his stuff, basically just kind of getting himself acquainted with the modern era. And he goes back to the tower, and like Nikki, he keeps getting worse and worse. Like he has lost his damn mind. He is not well. And he's just like full manic now. He's just being evil out of spite. Just to be like, I am evil and I just because I can. Fuck you, Lestat. Like it's full manic episode. And it's a lot, and they're like, we need to do something about Nikki. Nikki and Lestat should break up. Because like Lestat is kind of repelled by Nikki, and Nikki hates Lestat for multiple reasons. One of which ghosted him, second of which turned him into a vampire, and now he's just like, I'm having buyer's remorse. So, you know, they need some space maybe. But like in the meantime, they need to get like Nikki out of this manic episode. So they're like, okay, you know what? Let's go for a walk. Like, here's a violin, let's go for a walk. And he just takes off. Nikki takes off, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta go find Nikki. And along the way to finding Nikki, like Lestat runs into a bunch of former members of like the Children of the Corn vampires. And they're like, dude, Armand has been killing us all. Like, we need a place to hide. I don't know what to do. This is a problem. Like, I don't... help us. You're the one who made this happen. And Lestat's like, shit, I don't know. Be actors. Because, like, you know, people will think you're weird because you're an actor, not because you're a vampire. Act like you're normal. It's one of those. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And they're like, can we use your theater? Please let us use your theater. And he's like, all right, fine. You can use the theater. Go live there, whatever. So they're like, yay, Lestat gave us a theater. And so like those coven members are like happy now. They have a little place to go. So they all go to the theater, and that's where they find Nikki, and he's like just playing a violin, being crazy. And he just, and he in his full manic episode, and he's just like, I am naming this the Theater of the Vampires. Mind you, Interview of the Vampires, the Theater of the Vampires was like a whole thing. And it works out for like a while. Like, Nikki stays there. Like, Nikki and Lestat are having space because frankly, they need it. And the little Children of the Corn vampires moved in, and they're like kind of taking care of Nikki, making sure he doesn't go like full batshit crazy. They're like, hey, let's manage this. So like it's working out. They're kind of like babysitters. And Armand is still like on the periphery of things. Like he's really lost because he doesn't know what to do with himself anymore. Because like Lestat, he walked in with his BDE and fucked up his whole coven. So like Armand's like, well, like, do you want to be best friends to Lestat? Because Armand doesn't really he doesn't know anybody else. All his coven's gone. He's like, Lestat, let's be best friends. But like Lestat's like, you're trying to trick me, aren't you? And Lestat and Armand's like, yeah, I am trying to trick you. I'm gonna kill you. And Lestat's like, nuh-uh. And then they get into a big vampire fight. And like, you know, Gabrielle's there, and she goes full mom, and she's like, now boys, stop this like horseplay. And she kind of just takes them both back to the tower, and she's like, all right, we're gonna talk about our feelings. And Armand, he just kind of goes into his backstory. So then like there's like a lot of time spent in Armand's like whole backstory. It was in the era of like Vlad Dracul and the Ottoman Empire, where they were like taking all of those like children from like Eastern Europe and like conscripting them into the Ottoman Empire. And Armand was one of those children. He gets taken to Constantinople as like a slave, essentially. And he's real pretty, so that makes him into like the kind of slave where they sell him to brothels. And he's just, it goes on for years, and he kind of just loses his will to live. And eventually this Italian guy buys him as a slave. And the guy who buys him is a vampire, and his name is Marius. And like Marius giving full Michelangelo vibes. Essentially, he buys Armand, they go back to like Venice, and he's like a painter and a sculptor, full Michelangelo vibe, right? And like Armand is kind of like his model for like a lot of things, and he's very kind to him. Mind you, he did buy him as a slave, so like there's a lot of consent issue problems here. Armand kind of falls in love with him. Mind you, he's the first person who was nice to him, so like there's not a lot of competition here. But like, so they're together, and it's kind of like a wonderful relationship, and Marius takes care of him. I'm thinking like Statue of David might have been Armand. Like the way that they talk about things. And I'm like, is that Armand? What? Are they rewriting history? I don't know. And eventually Marius, he turns Armand into a vampire. Mind you, Armand is still very young. He's a teenager still. Probably should not be a vampire yet. But like, he turns him into a vampire. And then they're this like vampire boyfriends, and they're happy for a while, and they hunt bad guys in the streets and stuff. And they're like, you know, they're kind of doing the Lestat thing where they're hunting bad guys, and they were happy, and they painted pictures, you know, they're doing their own thing. The children of the corn motherfuckers, they come and they're like, fuck you, Marius, and they kill him. Right? They burn him, and they burn Armand. They kidnapped him in particular because like Armand kept talking about something called those who must be kept. And they're like, who are those who must be kept? Where are they? And like Armand doesn't know what that is. Marius never told him, so he doesn't know anything. But they like basically indoctrinate Armand into their little cult, and they're like, are you gonna do what we do? And he's like, yeah, if you'll stop burning me, I'll do whatever you want. So it's not really like a nice joining of this church. And so he kind of joins the children of the corn, children of the vampire corn. He joins them because he thinks, you know, Marius is dead, and you know, he doesn't have anyone to take care of him, so he kind of just joins his church. He just goes full force, and then, you know, we now know who he was now, full cult leader fantasy of the children of the corn vampires. So Lestat, he's like, okay, you know what, like I get it, like I feel for you, like that was a fucked up story. You need to find something to do with yourself. Why don't you go hang out at the theater of the vampires? Because like Nicky needs a babysitter, someone who's like firm and strong and can put him in his place. And like, you were already like coven master of those other guys. They'll totally listen to you. Like, go over there, don't kill them. Try to be normal. Live at the theater. So Armand didn't really have anything else to do. So he's like, all right, I guess I'll do that. Lestat and Gabrielle, they just kind of decide, let's get out of Paris. Paris, not the scene right now. So they leave Paris and they go world travel. And Lestat, he's real curious about this Marius guy, because he doesn't think he's dead. He's like, he probably survived. So like, he's been leaving messages everywhere he goes. He leaves a message for Marius, and he's like putting out a lot of energy into it. He's like, Marius, I want to meet you. You seem like a cool dude. So like, he's been doing that all around the world, just leaving messages for this Marius guy. Hopefully maybe Marius will see what and like track him down. Lestat and Gabrielle are kind of growing apart a little bit. Gabrielle wants to go off on her own and do her own thing, and Lestat, he kind of wants to do his thing, which is kind of still be part of the human world and be like a fancy pants. And Gabrielle's like, I don't really want to be part of the human world. I kind of want to do my own thing. I want to go explore. And then like things start picking up. Like now we're into like French Revolution era, and like things are getting really bad. He's hearing like updates from his lawyer and stuff saying like, yo, listen, things are getting bad. I have moved your assets to foreign bank accounts so they won't get seized. He's a good fucking lawyer. Best investment Lestat made. He hears through his lawyer that like the peasantry of like his dad's marquessdom had risen up and killed the whole family. Like his brothers, their brothers' wives, the brothers' kids, like they killed everybody and sacked the castle. However, his asshole dad managed to get away, and like he went to America. He's in New Orleans now. So he doesn't really know what to do. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna go to Cairo. And he goes to Cairo, and when he gets there, there's already a package waiting from him, from his lawyer. He opens up the package, and it's Nicky's violin, and he's like, oh shit, something bad happened. And there's like a note in it, and it's from like one of the like coven vampires that like writes to Lestat, and she's like, listen, like we did everything we could for Nicky. He lost his ever-loving shit, and he burned himself alive. He's dead now. So, you know, Lestat, he's very sad now. He's like, okay, now my boyfriend killed himself and my mom left me and I'm alone and I'm in Egypt and I don't know anybody. So he's like not having a good time. He just gets too sad to do anything. So he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna dig a big hole in the ground and take a nap. That's what he does. He digs a big hole like under his house and he covers himself up with a bunch of dirt and he just takes an extended nap. Like, I don't even know. They don't say really how long it was, but maybe like even a couple years or something. Like, he's just sad and in the dirt and he stays there for a really long time. And like, he does, like, I don't know. He had to work through some shit essentially. So he took a vampire nap. He feels this presence again and he's like, oh, presence. And someone digs him up. And you know who digs him up? Marius. Marius found him. He's alive. He found all his little notes around the world. He dug him up and it's Marius. So now Lestat and Marius are together. What's gonna happen next? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I kind of talked myself sober, I feel. I've been talking for so long. So I'm gonna like go rest, come back tomorrow, start up some new stuff, gonna finish the book. Hello YouTube, it is day 3 finally of the Vampire Lestat. Oh my goodness gracious. So I'm gonna finish this today. I'm on the last third. Very excited about it. I like it, it's very good, but it's very long and very depressing. So I'm trying to get through it. There's not a lot of action really. It's just a lot of like broody, moody feelings. But like, I'm not surprised. It's the Vampire Chronicles. The whole point of it is to be broody and moody. But yeah, I'm gonna knock this out. I'm gonna just read it all and I will check back in with you once I have completed it. I am very excited to see what happens. Hi. So, I just poured wine down my shirt, if that gives you any indication of where I am in life right now. Okay, now that I'm done being covered in wine, let's talk about what happened in the end of the Vampire Lestat. Marius, right? So he dug up Lestat. Yeah, Lestat was taking a nap. Marius dug him up. And he takes Lestat to his manor in like the Mediterranean and it's super fancy. And Marius, he is like remarkably chill for a vampire. He's just like, you know what? Like, I don't need to show off my vampire skills because it's kind of lame to brag about it. Marius, he's very much like, Lestat, you are interesting. I think you're hot. Like, we should be friends. And like, I thought it was really cool you left me messages all around the world. And like, I'm gonna show you those who must be kept. It's kind of a big deal. He takes Lestat into like, I don't know, like the back room of his manor. And there's a couple vampires in there. And they're like, basically like statues. Like they've kind of turned to like, they're like pale, marbly statues. Lestat's like, who's this lady? Like, he's kind of really into like the female vampire, and the female vampire like mind melds with them and she says, my name's Akasha, and he's like, oh, Akasha, which is really weird for Lestat because so far Lestat hasn't really shown any interest in women. He's pretty much just always been with men, which I mean, he could like both. He's a vampire, you know, he could do what he wants. But anyway, this leads us into Marius's backstory because he had to show Lestat this so things make sense. So let's do a flashback here. Marius, he was like a Roman scholar, like full on like togas, like BC. Like, he's been around for like 2,000 years. He's old as shit. One night he's at this tavern, he's just writing in his notebook, being a scholar, and then there's this guy at the bar and he's like a Viking kind of dude or like a druid. I don't know. He's like similar in build, and his name's Mael. We find that out later, but his name's Mael. And he's like weirdly religious. It's kind of, he comes up to him and it's like, have you met our Lord and Savior? You're going to. And so like, he like knocks out Marius and he kidnaps him. So Marius, he wakes up and he's just like, what is happening? And Mayal's like, hey, I'm bringing you back to meet my gods. And Marius is freaked the fuck out because he's like, this is not going to end well. I'm a human sacrifice. And so they bring him back to like their village, and they keep him there for a while. And then finally it gets to the big day where they're all like, it's the big festival. They're like, oh, he's like, oh shit, I'm gonna get sacrificed. This is the day. So they bring him out to like forest, and they get to this big tree, right? And then Marius is like, wait a minute, something's up. And then like they push him into the big tree, and in this big tree there lives a vampire. And it's a vampire, and he's all like extra crispy. Like he's burned as all hell. He's like black and crispy. Like he's like gross. He's very confused about what's happening. And then the vampire, the little beef jerky vampire, he's like, listen, a while ago, like all of the vampires I knew, we all spontaneously got super fucking burnt. No one got us in the sun. We're all extra crispy. I don't know what the hell happened. So this is what's going to happen now. I'm going to make you into a vampire, and then you got to go to Egypt, and you got to figure out what the fuck happened over there, because it's what did this to us. It's up to you now, bro. Marius is like, what? But like, he doesn't really have a choice in the matter. So like, beef jerky vampire makes him into a vampire. So now Marius, he's a vampire. Step one of being a vampire, you gotta get the fuck away from the druids. Like they are creepy. They're gonna lock you in a tree. Bro, you gotta get out of there. So Marius, he escapes the druids, and he makes his way to Egypt, and he finds more vampires there. And then he's like, okay, who's the eldest vampire? And he gets taken to them, right? And then the eldest vampire, he's also a scholar. And he tries to tell him like this very muddled kind of hearsay version of like how people became vampires in the first place. And it kind of goes back to like Egyptian mythology with like Isis and Osiris. And this story essentially is like a fantastical version of like vampires. But we also find out why all those other vampires got turned into beef jerky. And it's because the elder vampire has been in charge of taking care of the Akasha and Enkill statue vampires. And the elder vampire guy, he was sick of taking care of them. So he said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna leave him out all day. I'll put him out in the desert in the sun and see what fucking happens. And you know what? Nothing really happened to them. They got a nice tan for being in the sun. But like, I guess they're like sympathetically related to all of the other vampires, and like, so all the other vampires got burned because they were getting burned, allegedly. So like, that's what happened. So it's all this fucking elder vampire's fault. Mind you, I didn't mention it, but the elder vampires also beef jerky. Like, they're all beef jerky vampires. So Marius, he goes and he meets Akasha and Enkill. And Akasha, she and Marius, they kind of get along right away. She's like, Marius, here's the deal. She's like telepathing with him. She's like, hey, you should take care of us, because this elder guy, he literally left us in the fucking sun. Like, he's an idiot. Like, you should take care of us. You seem smart. You are going to be our new keeper. We're good. So Marius is like, you know what? I'm gonna believe you. That's a great idea. So he buys all the mummy stuff he can. He gets like sarcophaguses and like wrappings and stuff. And he wraps them up like little mummies. He puts them in here, and he's like, all right, I'm taking you back to Rome. Like, he just packs up mummy vampires. and that's been going on for like 2,000 years at this point. Like, it's been 2,000 years since he did this. It's been a while. So he's still like hanging out with these statue vampires, just taking care of them. Marius is like, hey, Lestat, now that you know too much, you have to leave. Like, why tell him at all? And he's really sad about it. He's like, yeah, you're super hot and stuff. We could have partied. And like, I really like you, but like, you have to get the fuck out of here, because now you know about the king and queen. Which is like, why did you tell him? Like, bro, you're salting your own game. You're cock blocking yourself, Marius. What's going on here? And then it's like the night before he's supposed to leave, and he gets this weird compulsion. He's like, I need to play Nikki's violin. I gotta play the violin. This is what I gotta do. So he grabs the violin and he starts playing it. And he gets compelled to like go into this like area that Marius says, don't go in the area. Don't go fuck around with the statue vampires. shit will get wild. And he's just like, I am compelled. So Lestat, he grabs the violin and he goes to the little statue vampire chamber and he just starts like playing for them. He's just like, he like plays like some crazy violin shit. And Akasha's like, nice. Like Akasha was like happy about it. She's like, this is cool. I like your style. Thank you for like entertaining me. Here, have some blood. So she lets like Lestat drink her blood, and then she drinks his blood while he's drinking her blood and she's drinking his blood at the same time. So it's like a loop and it's like a thing. And then Ankil gets very mad and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, Lestat. And like, understandably, Lestat walks up in here, Mr. I'ma steal your girl, and he's like, why are you fucking drinking my wife, yo? Like, Ankil's upset. And Akasha's like trying to get him off of like Lestat. And she's like, don't kill him. And then like Marius figures out what's going on and he's like, oh shit. So like he kind of calms down Ankil and like, he calms down everything and he's just like, Lestat, get the fuck out of here. What have you done? So like Lestat gets out of there. He's freaked the fuck out because he almost got his head squished by a statue. And Marius is like, oh my word, like this doesn't happen. Why is this? Damn it, Lestat. Like, Marius is a little upset. So it's now officially time for Lestat to leave. He's like, you gotta go. This is it. You gotta go right now. It's for your own safety. Why don't you go to New Orleans? I'll get you on a boat. Here's like a boat. Go to New Orleans, go find your dad. That's what you were going to do originally anyways before you started napping. So they part and Lestat's like, but like, I want to hang out with you. You're my only vampire friend. And he's like, don't worry about it, Marius. He's like, I'll find you when the time's right. Like, I'm not going to lose you. Don't worry about him. I'll find you. So they part ways. And like, he kind of goes into a lot more of like, the events of Interview with the Vampire for a minute and just gives like context for things. He's kind of like sad about Louis still because like Interview with the Vampire painted a very different picture of Lestat than how he actually is. So he kind of forgives him though because there are like kernels of like truth in it, but basically Louis only really saw what he wanted to see. He didn't know the full picture. So whether really, I don't know, he has a soft spot for Louis, I guess, because like, you know, Lestat, he's also really all about killing bad guys. So all of those people he killed, did he kill them? Yes, but like Louis didn't know the reasons why he was killing them. Like almost all of them were bad guys, like for reasons. And he's like waxing poetic about like Claudia for a little bit, and he does feel bad about it. He's like, that's something I never should have done. I shouldn't have made a 5-year-old into a vampire. Obviously, like, like that's not really hard to figure out. And then we kind of get Lestat's version of events about what happened to Claudia. So like, remember in Interview with the Vampire, Louis and Claudia, well, mainly Claudia, they try to kill Lestat and it doesn't stick. It did hurt him really badly. Like he was all shriveled and scarred and like gross, and then he got burnt. So like he's not doing well physically. Like he's not healing very fast because like he took a lot of damage. So he's like, you know what? I need to find some old ass blood to drink. So he's like, I got it. I know where an old vampire is. I'm gonna go visit Armand. Remember Armand? Because like I know where he is. He's in the Theater of the Vampires. Like I put him there. I'll go visit Armand. And he's like, hey, Armand, guess what? I'm all fucked up. Can I drink some of your blood? It'll help me heal. He thinks they're friendly. And like Armand does not like him still. He's still holding that grudge from him fucking up his Children of the Corn experience. Like he's like still a little bit like about it. Armand fully like, he was the mastermind of the Kill Claudia plan. We kind of already knew that, but like to more of an extent, like Lestat was all fucked up and like not there mentally and like was forgetting things. Like he was like senile by the time he got there. So like when he's like saying things that happen, he doesn't know what's happening around him. He wasn't in a good mental place. Armand doesn't let him drink any of his blood. He's being an asshole about it. And like, and he uses all that stuff to make it look like Lestat, it was his idea to get Claudia killed, but it wasn't. Like he was just like, no, I'm just trying to drink some blood, homie. So it was all Armand all along. Like he was the evil one the whole time. And we kind of get back to where we are now because it's like in the 1920s or something. And Lestat's like, I am so fucking tired again. Like he's like, you know what? it's time for another vampire nap. So he digs a big hole, gets in it, takes a vampire nap. So he's like from the 1920s till the 1980s, he just took a nap. Just napping away. And then it's like the 80s and he starts hearing music. Like his house that he owns, he still owns it because he took care of his money properly. So this trust has always been endowed. So like it's still his house. But I guess like a band is like practicing there or something, and he's just like, I like this music. Like, I'm assuming it might be like glam rock or something. I don't know. It's the early 80s. I'm assuming glam rock, maybe hair metal. I don't feel like Lestat would be into hair metal though. I feel like he would definitely be into glam rock. So I'm gonna put glam rock on this. So he wakes up, he digs out of his little hole and he's like, breakfast. And he eats some people and he comes back and he's like, guess what, band of children? I am your new leader of the band. You're famous now. I'm a vampire. Like, he's just like sassy about it. And he like he's like, I am your leader now. He goes finds a new lawyer. And he's like, listen, get my money. They're in these foreign banks. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to buy all this like recording equipment. I'm a rock star now. And she's like, whatever you say. And it works out. Like, he becomes like super popular. He's like the fucking rock star of the 80s. And so now we're back in the present. This is all of Lestat's backstory for so much of the book. Basically, we were reading the memoirs that Lestat wrote. And it's coming time for Lestat to put on his big first like concert. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be in San Francisco. And obviously other vampires are unhappy with him because he's like, you know, talking about vampire shit, and the whole point of vampire shit is that you don't talk about vampire shit. It's like Fight Club. And they're all leaving him angry voicemails. Which is so stupid. Like, you're vampires, you're leaving angry voicemails? It's the night before the concert, right? And he feels a presence again. Like, he feels a lot of presences throughout the book. And then he wakes up and he goes outside, and you know who it is? It's Louis! Louis and Lestat are back together. So they kind of like reconcile because I guess like Louis had read his book and like it kind of gave more context to what had happened in his story, so like he kind of gets it more. But like Louis also here to have like the voice of reason. He's like, Lestat, like, vampires are mad at you. I don't think you're like not assessing the situation correctly. Yes, there's only voicemail so far, but like they're very mad at you. Like, you should not do this concert. It's going to be a problem. But like, that's not Lestat. Lestat's whole personality is like, fuck it, I'm gonna kick the hornet's nest and see what happens. So like, he's like, no, I'm gonna do the concert. Like, I don't give a shit. And like, Louis like, all right, fine, I'll come to the concert and stay with you then. Somebody's to have your back. So like, Louis and Lestat back together. Love it. I think they're boyfriends. Like, low-key, I think they're boyfriends. They might be. I'm not sure. It's kind of like loosely interpreted. But like, I'm happy they're back together. Yes. So it's time for the concert. Lestat and Louis and his band, they all go to the concert. It's just complete pandemonium. It's just insane. And there's like vampires in the crowd and stuff, but they're not really doing anything. So Lestat does a whole concert. Like, Lestat was doing some vampire shit. They sweat blood. So they're saying how sweaty he was, and it was just like blood sweat. I'm like, what are people thinking? Like, he's just covered in blood. But anyway, so they all leave after the concert, and Lestat and Louis, they're all gonna get into like this car and stuff. But then like some vampires show up, and they're like, we're gonna attack you, blah. And like, they have to fight off the vampires, and like the other vampires who were attacking them just go up in flames. Like, no one set them on fire. They just started catching fire. And they're like, oh, I'm all burning. And then this car rolls up. It's a fancy car. Rolls up and someone, like, opens the door, like, get in. And so, like, Louis and Lestat, they hop in this car and they go. They're like, this is the best idea. And guess who is driving the car? It's Gabrielle, Lestat's mom, back in town, saving him from vampires who just caught fire. What? The crew's all getting back together, everybody. So it's Gabrielle, Lestat, and Louis. So I guess like his mom is meeting his boyfriend now. But like, anyway, they all get in the car, and then like there's a car chase, and there's a big crash, and they like all they fly off the freeway, and they survive the crash. Obviously they're vampires, and like the bad vampires come and try to attack them again, and those guys all catch on fire, and they're like, who is catching these vampires on fire? They don't know what's going on. And Lestat thinks maybe it's Marius doing it. He's like, Marius, he told me he would come back when the time's right, so maybe it's Marius. Marius is setting people on fire. But like, it's not Marius. Guess what? It's not Marius at all. Because Lestat, he does his mind meld thing. He hasn't done it in a while, so it's a little rusty. He's doing his mind meld thing, and he calls Marius in his brain. And he's like getting a fuzzy signal back, and like he kind of brokenly gets the message from Marius that Akasha woke the fuck up and she's on the loose. Marius had been playing, like, I don't know, MTV in the crypt for them so they'd have entertainment, and she kept hearing his music, and like it pumped her up. She was like, you know what, I'm awake, I'm gonna start moving around and shit, I'm done being a statue. So she's up, she's going crazy, she's setting people on fire, and that's a bombshell. They're like, oh shit, so she's off and doing crazy things. But like, it's really late at night, like it's almost morning, the sun's gonna come up soon, so like there's nothing they could do about it right now. They can't go hunt down Akasha, the sun's gonna come up. So they all go home and they're going to bed. They all get tucked into the little coffins. Lestat, he gets into his coffin, he's getting like snuggled up, and then he realizes someone's in the coffin with him, and guess what? It's Akasha. She's in his coffin, and then the sun rises and he falls asleep. He's just out, and that's how it ends. That's the end of the book. He's like, there's a person, it's Akasha, sleep. And like, it's over. We're like, what? I need the next book. I need it now. I'm gonna read it next month. Okay, so I feel like I've been talking for like a long time, and I have talked myself sober again. But you know what? It's okay. And overall, did I enjoy this book? Did I enjoy The Vampire Lestat? Yes, I did. This book in particular was just very emotionally straining to get through because it's so broody and like existential, and like there's so much history in it. It goes over like hundreds of years, plus flashbacks to other vampires who are even older. So it's like a lot going on here. But like, hot damn, that ending is such a cliffhanger. If this was like back when this originally came out and I had to wait several years for the next book, I don't know what I would have done with myself. Anyway, on that note, that was The Vampire Lestat, and I liked it. Let me know in the comments down below. I don't know. What's another vampire book you like? I'm going to be reading Queen of the Damned. It was always my goal to finish the original trilogy. So, I don't know. If you've read more books in the Vampire Chronicles, which ones are worth checking into? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. Also, you could become a patron or a channel member and get exclusive content. The links are in the description down below. And I will see you guys very soon. Goodbye.